Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dropping the Gloves. Tim Wurzberger, John Scott here. Thanks for joining us. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's a warm, beautiful, sunny day here in Charlotte. It's really great. And you were just saying 15 minutes ago, you're on NHL's Sirius Radio, and here you are now talking to me. What's going on?
I'm everywhere. And it's so funny. You do these interviews. I do. You don't. I do these interviews, and I'm sorry for that. And then I do them all like 10, 15, 20 minutes long. And then afterwards I go, probably shouldn't have said that. And so sure enough, this one, we were talking about, how great the Four Nations Cup was. I don't know why. Maybe because fighting. And a little comment slipped out. I said, yeah, Gary Bettman was soaking wet in his seat. And I go, great. Why did I say that? This is national, all over the world. I'm trying to be, an inspiration for kids, a role model. Right away, I got a text message from one of my former ADs in college. He's like, nice segment. Gary Bettman soaking wet, eh? I'm like, great. Like, it's something that's a throwaway comment that you think no one would pick up on. Everybody picks up on it. It's just like when I was last year with the Corey Perry comment we were talking about before we came on air. I got pretty much blackballed from the Blackhawks because I made one comment. And then everybody's up in arms about it. I get suspended, and then they don't bring me back this year. But I'm going to come back hot and heavy next year. I've done my penance. My mea culpas are done. Next year, I'm going to be working with the Hawks. I've atoned for my issues. Right, Tim?
Yeah, but you know what? The common thread in this, besides the fact that it's you, is that these incidents are happening when you're going live. And they don't really come out too much on the podcast, except for the Corey Perry thing, which I think I, in retrospectively, should have cut it out. But that's the point, is that I'm able to edit the stuff and protect you from yourself.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times where Tim, we get done with the podcast and he goes, I'm not letting that go. We're cutting that out. There was one last week where I was in tears of how funny I thought I was being at I was making fun of someone. And Tim's like, we can't let that go. We can't air it.
There was a YouTube comment. Did you see it? There was like, oh, that was a clean cut by Tim. I wonder what John said. Yeah.
Oh, it was a solid 2 minutes, I think, where I went on with this joke, and it was fantastic. But anyways, awful lot of times when we come on the air, we do the podcast, and then we stop recording, and we go, oh, we just missed breaking news. Oh, darn it. Something just happened, and we're not going to go back and record. Not this time. We're hitting it right when it's happening. John Tortorella has been fired by the Philadelphia Flyers after 3 seasons behind the bench. A very strange time to be fired when you're thinking of when coaches are fired. It's usually pretty early in the season, give the team a boost, or it's in the off season. Very rare you see a coach get fired with 10 games left in the season. Why are we here? Well, the Flyers are terrible. They're 1-8-1 over their last 10 games. They have been shellacked, Tim, absolutely shellacked their last few games, culminating in a 7-2 just pee-pee whack by the Toronto Maple Leafs 2 days ago. After that game, John Tortorella goes to the podium or goes into the scrum of reporters, and he made some comments. And he said, I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season, where we're at right now. Ipso facto, I don't want to coach. I don't want to coach this team where we're at right now. It's not fun for me. Is that how you take those comments, Tim, after the game?
Well, the word that sticks out to me is learning, because he's coached great teams before and he's coached bad ones. This is not the first team he's coached that hasn't been a good team or had a bad season. He's been a coach for a long time. So I wonder what he means by that. And I wonder if there's something to do with this specific group, whether it's this era in hockey, or it's even just not to be the guy, old man yelling at clouds, but like, is coaching a losing team for players this stage different than it was 10 years ago? I don't know, but he seems to not be able to connect with these players in this team, and you can't expect to say something like that, even if you're John Tortorella, and not expect to have repercussions for it. So what do you think?
Well, there's a couple things going on here. One is there was a power battle between him and Danny Briere.
Yeah.
It started last year with the captains. Danny wanted captains. Torts did not want captains. Sean Couturier, there is Konechny. He wanted a leadership group with letters on their jerseys, and Torts didn't want that to happen. He didn't think those guys had earned it, whatever. So that was the start of it. And then this year you bring in Michkov. Briere wants him to be played. He wants him to be played a lot. And Torts, you can tell, is not okay with that. They've been fighting. There's been issues. I'm assuming there's been big issues between Briere and Tortorella about that because it's a conflict of interest. John Tortorella is an old school type of coach. He motivates through a firm fist. That's how he coaches. That's how he learned the game. And for people to say, oh, he can learn, he can adjust, he can adapt, you can't. When times get tough, you revert back to what you know. And what John Tortorella knows is, I am the boss. You march to the beat of my drum. And if you don't want to do that, I will bench you. I don't care if you make $10 million. I don't care if you make $800,000. You are getting benched. This is my team. And that's how he coaches. And he was getting pressure from Danny Briere. He's getting pressure from everybody, the higher ups. You have to evolve. You got to be nicer to the players. And he tried. But in this situation where the team's garbage and he's trying to motivate them, he doesn't know any other way. And I feel like another aspect of this was last year he coached fantastic. Coming into last year, this team was not supposed to contend. They were, a middle-tier team, not a lot of talent. They were in the middle of a rebuild, but he still got him in a playoff spot almost. He had him in a spot the whole season long, and they faltered off right at the end of the season. So he set that expectation for this season. Well, maybe we can duplicate that. Maybe we can make the playoffs this year. And they've been terrible. They traded Lawton. They got rid of Farabee. They traded Morgan Frost. They lost Carter Hart. They've had their issues. And I feel bad for John Tortorella, Tim. I really do. Because he's coached his ass off all season long and last year. And you can just tell in that press conference, he was just a defeated man. Right? He just looked like he had given everything he had to give. And there was nothing left. And he's like, I'm not learning a new way to coach. I'm not. And he was just defeated. And this was kind of an amicable parting. What does that call when both parties are good with the split? And I feel like Torts is fine leaving. I'm sure Danny Briere is fine getting rid of him. But you really set him up for failure, Danny Briere did. He had no talent. And the message does kind of wear off after a while, especially when you're a losing team. I was there. We had Lindy Ruff and we had Ted Nolan. These are hard-nosed coaches. And after, you've lost 40 games, you're like, shut up, man. Like, we're bad. Just like, stop yelling at us. Just embrace it. And it's tough for the coach. It's tough for the players. And there had to be a change after what he said on Tuesday. But I do feel bad for Torts.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where like it came out of nowhere this morning and no one expected it. But then you go look back at the last couple of days, couple of weeks, the whole season, and the signs were always there that we were leading to this. And in retrospect, it almost seems obvious that it happened. And I think there probably was a little bit of relief where Briere, the conversation was probably something like, hey, John, we got to move on. We're going to let you go. And he was like, oh, thank God. Now I can go home and relax. And like this, it just wasn't working. And to your point, what would success have looked like for them? Like, what could he have done? This is not a roster built to contend. And it's not even like you got Michkov and that's a lot of fun, but then what else is there like that's exciting and that you can build around and get some momentum going around? Because the Sharks have it, right? Like the Ducks maybe even have it. Some of the other teams, the Sabres should have it, but they don't. But the Flyers, so like what could he have done differently? I'm not really sure.
Nothing. There's absolutely nothing he could have done. I think he had a great time in Philadelphia. He coached his butt off. He did what he had to do, and that's it. He's moving on. Good luck to the next coach coming in, because this team, it's not all of a sudden going to turn around. Like we see other situations where, Bruce Boudreau's coming in and the Canucks are fantastic. Craig Berube's coming in and the St. Louis Blues are just world beaters. This team is bad. They will not be any better next year than they were this season. They are a long time from getting into contention. So good for Danny Briere for letting him go. Good for John Tortorella for taking it like a man and calling it like it is. It was just, it was bound to happen. I'm strange he didn't wait till the end of the season. That's an odd decision, but it's giving the new coach Brad Shaw, a chance to come in and maybe be the head coach next year. My biggest thing is, do they change the way they play in the last 10 games of the season? Do you have that? Like, is that even possible to come in and say, okay, we're revamping everything? I know we've coached and we've practiced this way the whole season long. We're playing the 1-2-2 or we're playing left wing lock or whatever it is. That's out the window. Let's go. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be a pinching team. We're going to be up in the rush. You have 9 games left. Can you do that? And to put it in perspective, Tim, do they take the handcuffs off Michkov?
I think they do, and I think they should. And I'm looking at their schedule right now. I don't think I could imagine a much easier schedule. They play tonight the Montreal Canadiens, which I think is their toughest game for the rest of the season. Like, that's the best team they're going to play. They have the Sabres in the weekend. They go on a road trip. They have Nashville, Canadiens again, Rangers, Islanders, Senators, Blue Jackets, Sabres. Like, these are all winnable games. They don't play like any legit contenders. So there's a chance they can go, if there's 10 games left, maybe they could win 6 of them. Or, 6-3-1 or something like that would be a realistic, best case scenario. They won't. If they can hover around 500 and maybe Michkov puts up 15 points over the last 10 games, like, that's like the best thing you could hope for. And you see what you have in these kids. But no, we always talk about when you make a coaching change and there's a little bit of bump over the next 5-10 games while the guys are excited and they want to earn playing time and curry favor with the new guy. But this late in the season, it's hard to think that that's going to happen, although the schedule does work in their favor.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. I think you have to play Michkov a ton. You put him on the ice and you don't let him come off the ice. I compare him to other high-end draft picks, guys around the league. Celebrini plays 20 minutes a game. Michkov plays 16. That's a lot, 4 minutes. That's 25% more ice time per game. So you have to get him on the ice and you have to give him opportunities. And Torts wasn't doing that because he felt he didn't earn it. But when you look at the other prospects that the Philadelphia Flyers have, it's pretty bare. There's not a lot there to build around. You got Drysdale on the back end, but who else do you really have? Bobby Brink? He's good. Play him a little more, but I don't know. There's a lot of work to be done in Philadelphia. Again, I feel bad for Torts, but it was a long time coming. It is, and this is a question you posed me. I want to know your thoughts. Can you be that authoritarian type of coach through a rebuild? Can that just discipline and unrelenting, all-encompassing hammer happen during a rebuild when there's so many downtimes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think yes, to a point. And you just mentioned this a minute ago. It's like they're human, right? And especially the veterans that have earned a roster spot, they have the contract, they just want to play winning hockey. And when you've lost like 25 out of the last 40 and half of the time the game's over by the middle of the second period or whatever, there's only so much like that you can take of that style of coaching where you just want to, like you said, shut up. Like, man, like we suck. There's no coaching that's going to change that. So I feel like this is kind of the point that it came to, and I don't know that it would have been any different. And I don't know what other coach would get a different result other than maybe just alienating the players. And I think that happened a little bit, which we haven't really talked about yet. But like the captaincy stuff last year, I don't think that Couturier had the full either perceived respect of Tortorella, or the players feel like he was slighted, and you ship off some of like the key popular guys in the room, like Lawton and Frost and these guys. So yeah, I think he probably lost the room a little bit.
This month, they have 1 win. 2 wins, excuse me. 2 wins in a shootout. So they have not had a regulation win all of March. Some of their losses, 7-2 to Toronto, 7-4 to Chicago, 6-3 to the Calgary Flames, 4-1 to Seattle Kraken, 5-2 to the Ottawa Senators, 4-1 to the Winnipeg Jets, 5-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes. They're getting ripped. A new one. So they're playing bad.
My question now for you is how soon again do we see Torts in the spotlight? Does he join like the TNT panel right away, or what do you think?
He'll be in the playoff rotation for sure. He's like a Charles Barkley. He will join some network and be right there on the panel. He's so good because he's Torts. He calls it as he sees it. I should be on the damn panel. I don't know why I'm not getting the calls. Because I put my foot in the mouth too many times. All right, moving on. I like fighting. I like talking about fighting. It has been an interesting last couple years because fighting has been either shunned, gone away, but then you get the Four Nations Cup where it's glamorized and promoted and just held up like, oh, it's so incredibly great. Well, we're going to talk about fighting, and we're going to talk about who is the toughest guy in the NHL. And that's a tricky question, Tim, because back in the day when I played, when days were good, when days were glorious, just kidding. Back in my day, all the heavyweights played 50, 60 games a year. You got a lot of ice. Fast forward to these days, the heavyweights don't play very often. It's very rare when you see a guy who gets 70 games as a heavyweight. All the top guys play sparingly. And by top guys, I mean the Reeves, the McDermotts, the Johnsons, those type of guys. So when you look at this list of who is the toughest guy in the league, you really have to ask yourself, is he tough if he doesn't play? Is he tough and effective when he only plays 20 games a season? How does that play in? Where does that weigh in who is the toughest guy in the NHL? And that's why I think the number one guy on my list is Matthew Olivier. He plays a ton. He fights like an animal. He's fought 13 times this year, Tim. I went back and looked at them all. In my opinion, he's won all 13. He might have a draw here or there, but every single fight, he either comes out on top or narrowly wins, in my opinion. And he fights out all oncomers. Reeves, Kastelik, Xhekaj, Gadjevich. He fights everybody. He's fought Rempy, he's fought McDermott, and he always comes out on top. And it's an easy number one for me. That wasn't the case last year, but I think this year he has really set himself apart from everybody else. Don't you think?
He does, but it depends on your definition of tough, right? Like, do you mean tough as like the best fighter? Do you mean the best all-around enforcer? Do you mean the guy that is the most physical? Like, how do you define it?
The guy who wins the fight. So when all the tough guys get into a ring, who is the toughest guy? And right now, I think it's Matthew Olivier. And yes, you guys are, I guess, eliminated because they don't play enough. Like Nick Delorier, he's been playing more of late, but Ryan Reeves is not invited to the party. He's in the AHL right now. Curtis McDermott is invited to the party because he doesn't play enough. Ross Johnson, I don't think he's invited to the party. So there are guys who are just not allowed in this conversation because they just don't play enough. They don't qualify to be called the toughest guy in the NHL. Yes, they're super tough. Like my toughest player is a dark horse, is Dylan McIlrath.
I like him.
Guy's a killer. A killer. AHL guy gets called up. Yeah, he gets called up every once in a while. He plays great. He's a decent 5'6" defenseman, tough as nails. Tough as nails. Wins fights going away. So I think he would be the toughest guy in the NHL, but he doesn't count because he's not playing in the NHL.
So just back to Olivier real quick. He's kind of a unicorn. We use that term all the time. There's not a lot of guys who are that tough and maybe the toughest that can also play like he plays because, like, all due respect, like Delorier is not playing like that, right? Ross Johnson's not playing like that. Reeves, obviously. And Olivier is. And I would love to ask him this question. I wonder what you think. Do you think obviously he's aware, and the answer is probably a little bit of both, but do you think he sees that opportunity to be that guy in the league and leans into it and takes on that role very intentionally? Or do you think he is just who he is no matter what? And no matter what era he played in, he would be the exact same player because that's who he is. You know what I mean?
A little bit. And I do think he knows his role. When he had him on the show, he was well aware that it was his contract year. He was well aware of who he was playing against. Like he knows who he is, but I don't think he changes who he is if the era is different. But that's actually an interesting question. If he's playing in my era, is he that type of player? Yeah, I do think he is. He just had that type of personality. Is an Arber Xhekaj that type of player in my era? Or is an Arber Xhekaj like John Erskine, who fights every once in a while, but for the most part doesn't fight? Because he knows if he does, you're going to get your doors beat off. It's one thing to be a physical player like Arber Xhekaj is. It's another thing to be a physical player and fight. Like Douglas Murray was a physical player. He didn't fight much because he knew if he did and he fought the type of guys who were in his weight class, he was going to get beat up. So it's a tricky line to toe. So I think Xhekaj is tough, and it's hard to compare. It's like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. You put Xhekaj in the league 15 years ago, he ain't top 10. You know what I mean? And if he plays the way he plays and then he fights, he's getting beat up a lot. So it's apples and oranges because he's never going to play 15 years ago. But I'm just answering your question. All right, moving on. Matthew Olivier is number one. And then that's it. as far as the heavyweights go. They don't fight very much. You have to look down to a Arbajak guy with 6 fights, Rempy with 6 fights, 2 of them in the AHL, a Jonah Gadovich with 5 fights. These guys just don't fight anymore. Ryan Reeves has 1, Nick Delorier has 3, Ross Johnson has 4, Curtis McDermott has 3. And all of these fights, for the majority of them, were in the first 2 months of the season. So it's tricky to do your ranking, and I want to get your take on this, Tim. Do any of these guys belong in this conversation who I just mentioned?
Yeah, again, it kind of goes back to the definition, but I still think like is Delorier not still an obvious top 3 pick for toughest guys in the league to you just because he doesn't play that much anymore?
Well, I think he is. He's going to be in my top 3, but I think the conversation should be had where he's playing, and this you could apply this to me when I played. Doesn't fight very much. Why doesn't he fight very much? Maybe he's just too tough. Maybe nobody wants to fight him. Maybe he's on a bad team and people just ignore him because what's the point? You're gonna win the game. Why fight this guy? There's no reason to. So there's a lot of factors that play into it. But he is my number 2 on the list. I feel like he's too tough to ignore. His track record speaks for itself, and he wants to fight. I just don't think the takers are there. So my number 1's Matthew Olivier. My number 2 is Nicolas Delorier. And then after that, it gets tricky. You got to, like I said, Ryan Reeves is not in the mix. Curtis McDermott is not in the mix for me. Ross Johnson is not in the mix for me. My 3 is Jonah Gadjovic from the Florida Panthers. I like the way he fights. He doesn't win every fight, but he shows up. He's a gamer. You look at some of the guys fighting and the ratings. I don't really care about that stuff, but the fights aren't fun. Ryan Reeves is a perfect example of that. Usually his fights are one-sided. They're not very fun to watch. Go watch a Jonah Gadjovic fight. It's entertaining. He throws them. He stands in there. It lasts 45 seconds to a minute. It's a hell of a fight, and I love that. So he is my number 3, and he's usually fighting out of his weight class, Tim. He's a small guy, relatively speaking. 6'3", 215 pounds.
Yeah, that's a name too that like, you know he's loved by his teammates just because of the way he fights and the way that he just throws his body in the line of fire. Another guy I don't see on your list, and he's probably because he doesn't fight very much and he's so good, offensively. But Brady Tkachuk, when he fights, what do you see when he fights from him?
Another guy like Jonah Gadjovic, he just fights with anger. He fights with passion, and that's a conversation to be had. What is the modern day tough guy? Is it the Delorier, the Ross Johnson, or is it the Marcus Foligno? Is it the Brady Tkachuk? Is it those types of players? What's that?
Tom Wilson? Where do you fit him?
Tom Wilson. Yeah, are those the modern day tough guys? I don't know. I'm doing this list. Everybody has their opinion, but in my opinion, if you got them all in the rink, those 3 guys that I listed would beat up the other guys. But then I think the other question is, what is a true tough guy? Is it just a one-dimensional guy who goes out there and fights, or is it a Brady Tkachuk who plays on the power play, who can score goals, who can hit, who can do everything, but also backs it up with his toughness? That's just another conversation for another day. But my top 3 are just fighters. If you just put them on the ice and they fight, who's going to win the fight? I think Olivier's 1, I think Delorier's 2, and I think Jonah Gadjovic is 3. Everyone, where's Matt Rempy? Okay. I got to be careful here because I don't want you to do some editing. Matt Rempy was put into an unenviable situation last year. He got thrust into the action, fights in the outdoor game, fights Olivier, fights Delorier, fighting everybody who asked. And his fights were entertaining. He wasn't winning many of them, but they were a hell of a show. Linsanity on the ice. It was crazy. Everybody was talking about this kid. He gets invited to the media circus in New Jersey when all the players come in and they do all the press and the skating and the videos and the pictures. He's there with the Will Smith and the Macklin Celebrini and the Connor Bedards and Matt Rempy. You think he wanted to be there? Do you think he deserved to be there? Hell no. But the league was just suckling on the teat of Matt Rempy because he was so popular. Fast forward to now, the poor kid is just struggling to fight. He's not tough. The old George LaRock School of Hard Knocks apparently is a terrible school because he's getting beat up left, right, and center. He just fought Tanner Jeannot a couple days ago, and he lost the fight. Was not entertaining, but he lost the fight. And just based on my records this year, he's been in 6 fights, 4 in the NHL, 2 in the AHL. He's 1-5. He's 0-4 in the NHL. He's lost to Jack guys, he's struggling, but he's playing okay. So I feel bad for him. He's just not a good fighter, Tim. And all that pomp and circumstance and fanfare, he's 20 some year old kid. It's tough to live
He's
up to,
young.
but he's a terrible fighter. He's a terrible fighter. We have to say it.
So what is it about the mechanics of it? Is it positioning? Is it strength? Like he went down pretty easily the other day, and he wanted to get right back up. So it's not like he's taking these blows to the head and that are knocking him out or whatever. So why isn't he winning fights or even hanging in there?
It's just his base. It's his core. It's how he sets up. He's not strong down low. And I again, I hate talking about myself. If you watch my fights, I never get thrown around. I hold my ground. My feet are solid. My core is good. He seems to just be manhandled in every single fight. And maybe he just needs to put on some weight or gain some leg strength or whatever. But it just doesn't seem like he is controlling any of the fights he's in. When you're getting manhandled by Tanner Jeannot, something's wrong. Tanner Jeannot should not be in your weight class. You should grab onto this guy and beat his doors off. And he doesn't. So I got to talk to George Laraque because he was promising the world. Like, he's going to be a killer. Watch out, NHL. The new sheriff is in town. If this is a sheriff, there's crime everywhere. The sheriff is not policing the town. Like, it's not happening. So poor Matt Rempy he's been in the league for a year and a half, and he's just probably had more articles, more critiques thrown on him than guys in their whole career. So he ain't on my list of top 10. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, it's so surprising. And, I would love to go back to listen to that Laraque interview from last summer when he had just gotten through training him. And he's like, dude, this guy's unbelievable. Watch out, league. Here comes Matt Rempy. He's, like you said, he's the new top dog, and he has not even come close to it. So are you going to throw your hat in the ring once again to teach Rempy what's what this summer? Do you still see that as like a salvageable fighter? Or do you think he is, I know he's young, but like he's not learning. He's not getting better.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to. They had their chance. I'm not like going to grovel. Please let me coach Matt Rempy. Please, please, please. No, you had your opportunity. Yeah. I gave you the chance, and you chose George Laraque. So now you can lie in your bed and bleed because that's what's happening. You're getting beat up by subpar tough guys on the regular, and I'm just not going to be here for it. One thing I did notice, Tim, when I was doing these rankings, that's it. Do you have anything to say of my top three? Do you agree with them?
I agree with the top three. The one name I saw on your list, and maybe this is what you were getting to just now, and I'd love to hear, and I could use some positive news about the Boston Bruins, this Kastelich guy. What do you like about him?
He's a gamer. No, I do. I think he's a gamer. I don't think he's one of the toughest guys in the world, but he shows up. Like he loses to a Tanner Jeannot, but he fights tough guys. He fought Arbajaka, he fought Jonah Gadjevich, he fights Tanner Jeannot. He's not gonna go out and knock people out, but I think what he does is he just shows up, and that's half the battle. Just showing up, giving your all, not playing defense, and that's what I like about him. Like he doesn't just show up for the sake of showing up, like a McCarron from Nashville. He has to fight because he's 6'6" and he's a big boy, and now he's a fourth line guy, so he has to fight, but he doesn't want to. It's almost like, okay, let's get this over with. I'm going to hold you off and throw a couple punches and be done with it. Kastelich he's a good pickup. I like him for the Bruins if he can stick on that fourth line. He will be tougher than a Trent Frederick. I don't know how his points are, but he's a decent player. So, a decent fighter, I mean. All right. One thing I wanted to touch on was doing my research. Typically, years ago, it would be all the teams would have tough guys. All the teams would, have fighters. Not so much anymore. It's interesting which teams lead the league in fights. And it's all the worst teams in the league. It's the Nashville Predators. It's who else did I have on my list? Golly jeepers. It's all the Anaheim Ducks. It's all the bad teams in the league. And it just got me thinking, the Utah Hockey Club, the Bruins, the Sharks, the Flames, they're all top 5. It just got me thinking, is it a detriment now to fight? Because when you look at the top teams in the league, other than the Florida Panthers, who is just, they're tough. That's how they play their game. But you look at the Leafs, you look at the Capitals, you look at the Hurricanes. Out west, you look at the Jets and the Stars and the Knights and the Avalanche. They don't have that aspect. They don't have that angle of a tough guy. Is it a bad thing to have toughness now? Because all the tough guys in the league are on teams that are out of the playoffs for the most part. So do we even need this player anymore, Tim?
Well, I liken it to baseball because it's, back in the day when you had like K-Rod and Papelbon and Mariano Rivera, you had like everyone wanted those closers that would get 30, 40, 50 saves a year. And now it's more of that closer by committee where you see guys like each contribute and get more time off and not rely. And I feel like you're seeing the same thing with fighters. And Florida's a perfect example. Like they don't have that one nuclear option, but you're going to have to face a Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett in past years, like Gudis and all these guys that like collectively they're a very strong team, and if one guy's not going, the other guy is. So I feel like that's kind of the I don't know, the tool set for building a good team right now. That's the blueprint, and I feel like it's hard to justify rostering a guy like that who can't really play, which is what makes Matthew Olivier so valuable.
But then you get situations like this on the other side of the page where the Oilers ranted and clipped Skinner's head. I think it's a perfectly accidental play, no ill intent, and you have Corey Perry
Yeah,
calling out everybody saying, "Oh, we're going to respond next time." Like, okay, Corey Perry, really? He's thrust into that role because the Oilers don't have someone who is that type of player. You have the Buffalo Sabres when your best player, Tage Thompson, gets buried in the middle of the ice with a very dirty hit, and no one does a thing. No one does a thing. And your best player is just laying on the ice because you don't have that type of player. So it's an interesting conundrum. What do we do? Do we have that type of player to respond who maybe takes up a spot, but when something does happen, he will respond appropriately in
yeah,
like manner? Or maybe that stuff doesn't happen. So there's no right answer to this, but there is an argument to be said for either side. Do we have a player to protect our guys? Or like Tampa hasn't had a tough guy in years, and they manage, but they
yeah.
do have some beef on the back end. So it's just, the chicken or the egg. What do you do? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But if I was a coach, I would pay a pretty penny to get a Matthew Olivier. He would be a very coveted player I would want. And when I went to the Rangers, I'll never forget. I walked into the office. Glenn Sather was sitting there chewing on his cigar. He had a million names on his board. He had all the players in the league, all the AHL players on the league. And he's like, "Sit down." I'm like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "The reason I got you is because you're the toughest guy in the league. And I always want the toughest guy in the league on my team." And you look back at all the teams that Glenn Sather had, he pretty much had the toughest guy on his team. Whether it was a Semenko, a Derek Bugard, he had the toughest hombre in the NHL. I was like, "Oh, not the toughest guy, Glenn, but thank you for thinking that." But it was, and he is a Hall of Fame coach. So I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. I think it's still valuable, but it's evolved, like you said. And I would give a Tom Wilson or a Matthew Olivier or a guy who can produce and still chuck him, I'd give him a lot of money. I'd pay him a lot of money, Tim, because it's so valuable to have that guy who can just throw down at the drop of a hat. And then you don't have to play him 3, 4, 5 minutes a game. You can play him 12, 15. Oh, unicorn is right, Tim. Unicorn is right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that they're getting a ton of money, but Matthew Olivier signing $3 million a year for like 7 years or whatever it was, like that term is pretty cool. And it's not like he deserves 5, 6, 7, 8 million. Like he's not that player, but you want him around for a long time, and you factor in the age, and also like we only spoke with him for a half hour, but he was such a likable, charismatic, personable. Like
Yeah,
you want that guy in your organization, and it's not uncommon for the fighters to wear that badge. So it's a guy that you want to keep around.
I agree. And they have good on them for re-signing him. He's a valuable piece, and he'll be good with them for a long time. So I think that's it, Tim. Anything from you?
No, quick hits would be the Bruins lost seventh in a row.
They're
They're
so
losing
bad.
to the Ducks, the Sharks. This is the worst losing streak in 15 years for them. But
Isn't it nice?
I'm glad. Like, don't contend. Go get a high pick. They could be in the lottery situation if this continues. And then the Minnesota Wild are 13, 15, and 1 since January 11th. They are bad, but Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek are going to join the lineup basically any day now. So hopefully they can turn that around and give whoever they're facing in the first round a decent series.
Yeah, speaking of Bruins, Brad Marchand potentially making his debut for the Florida Panthers. So keep an eye out for that. And then the Sabres doing what the Sabres do. They suck all season long. Then all of a sudden they're playing really good hockey. They're beating the Winnipeg Jets. They're playing very inspired hockey. They beat the Ottawa Senators just to win enough to get out of a good draft spot. And then maybe have some hope for them next year. So good on the Sabres for really blowing the draft potential. And stay tuned because it's fun. The good stuff is coming, everybody. We're going to have Aaron Ward tomorrow Carolina Hurricanes Stanley Cup champion, 2-time Detroit Red Wing champion. I'm going to dig in. What the hell happened to the Hurricanes this season? Because he knows. He's an insider. Then we'll talk some hockey stuff. Tim can join us if he can. He's busy. So we'll see. But all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Cheers.